Order. Thank you to our nominees, Mr. Modi, Mr. Getman, Dr. Callahan, and Mr. Bell, for being here today. Congratulations on your nominations, and thank each of you for your willingness to serve. We will first hear from Arjun Modi, who is nominated to serve as the Deputy Commissioner of the Social Security Administration. The Deputy Commissioner assists in administering the programs necessary to accomplish SSA's mission, including directing the development of agency policies and procedures, as well as the supervision of agency financial management systems. Mr. Modi has over 20 years of experience in the public sector, most recently as senior Senate staffer for our colleague Senator Barrasso. And I'm confident that his extensive background in government service will allow him to maneuver effectively at the Social Security Administration and assist Commissioner Bisignano in delivering the high-quality service that beneficiaries deserve. Next, we will hear from Jeff Gutman, who is nominated to serve as Deputy USTR for Africa, the Western Hemisphere, Europe, the Middle East, the environment, labor, and industrial competitiveness, a pretty big portfolio. If confirmed, Mr. Gutman will have an array of complex matters in his portfolio. Given his background, he is well qualified to manage these issues. For example, while serving as the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Export-Import Bank, Mr. Gutman assisted small businesses in exporting U.S. capital goods and allowing businesses to stay competitive on the global stage. This experience will serve him well at the USTR, where he will be responsible for ensuring American interests are protected abroad. We will also hear from Dr. Julie Callahan, who is nominated to serve as the Chief Agriculture Negotiator at USTR. Dr. Callahan has a long career in public service across USTR, the Food and Drug Administration, and the Department of Agriculture. As the Assistant USTR for Agricultural Affairs and Commodity Policy, Dr. Callahan has worked tirelessly to promote the interests of U.S. farmers, ranchers, and food manufacturers. In fact, her nomination has been supported by over 80 associations representing these groups. I look forward to working with her, if confirmed, to ensure that the interests of U.S. agriculture are protected in international negotiations. Finally, we will hear from March Bell, who is nominated to serve as the Inspector General of the Health and Human Services Department. The statutory purpose of the HHS Office of Inspector General is to prevent and detect fraud, waste, and abuse, and to promote the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness of HHS programs and operations. HHS is responsible for administering some of our most significant and wide-ranging programs, such as Medicare and Medicaid. Mr. Bell will need to serve as a principal overseer of these programs, ensuring that American taxpayer dollars are used effectively. His long career at oversight and investigations at the Department of Justice and in the House of Representatives, among other federal and state agencies, will serve him well in this position, if confirmed. Before closing, I will respond to allegations from my Democratic colleagues that this position is not legally vacant due to President Trump's termination of previous inspector generals. The Senate Armed Services, Small Business, and Veterans Affairs Committee, to name just a few, have all considered and advanced inspector general nominee positions that were also vacant. Inspector generals serve at the discretion of the President, and this position is vacant. Mr. Bell has successfully met the Finance Committee's rigorous vetting standard and now deserves to likewise be considered by this committee. Thank you again to our nominees for their time today. And with that, I recognize Ranking Member Wyden for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It is unfortunate that the chairman has decided it is business as usual here at the Finance Committee. This is coming against the backdrop of a healthcare calamity that's about to hit so many American families like a wrecking ball. One of the couples that are just going to get clobbered by what's ahead are Bart and Carla from Eugene, Oregon, and they are going to fall between the cracks and in such a hurtful way. They are going to pay 500% more for the same health insurance they had this year. 500%, folks. That's what we're talking about, and we're going to have a hearing on some nominees. Now, the reality is we have tried to negotiate with Republicans to prevent these huge price hikes in insurance premiums for months. Every step of the way, even before the shutdown, the door has been slammed shut by my Republican colleagues. In 2 days, millions of Americans are going to start trying to renew their health insurance because of efforts by Donald Trump and for-profit insurance companies to actually conceal these premium increases. Most American families are in the dark about how expensive their health care is going to get. Wait till you hear them speaking out about sticker shock. Just days from open enrollment, what are the Republicans talking about? They're talking about bailing out a foreign country while families go hungry, and the Secretary of Treasury, who's close to a billionaire, talks about being a soybean farmer. The Republicans sure aren't talking about keeping costs down. The Finance Committee could be working today to keep health care affordable, to make sure people don't lose their coverage. Instead, it's been quiet. You can practically see tumbleweeds rolling across the floor of the House of Representatives. Mike Johnson's given everybody a 6-week vacation. Might as well be tumbleweeds rolling across the floor here or this hearing room. What we ought to be doing is talking about the consequences, the premium increases families are going to face, and what is going to be done about them. In 10 months, the Senate Finance Committee has failed to hold a single hearing on health care. Not a one. It's been 400 days since that last meeting on major and real health policy challenges. With a health care affordability crisis for millions of Americans days away, that is a textbook case of failure to fulfill your constitutional duty to conduct oversight and find solutions for families. On our side, we've made it clear that we are more than ready to negotiate with Republicans to keep costs down and reopen the government. And in fact, I've been giving examples of how this committee can do it if there's a political will, such as the situation with pharmacy benefit managers. So I think it's unfortunate that when we want to go after solutions to these skyrocketing family health costs, the Republicans just aren't available. Now, turning to the subject of today's hearing, we'll start with Mr. Bell, nominated to serve as Inspector General at HHS. Donald Trump has done more than any American president in history to undermine inspector generals tasked with rooting out fraud and abuse in the government. He unlawfully fired nearly 24 inspectors general across the government, including at HHS. He replaced them with a whole wave of partisan Republican operatives who stand ready to sabotage the independence of oversight inspectors general and what they're supposed to do. So my own view is Mr. Bell shouldn't be with us this morning. My view is the job he seeks from the American people isn't vacant. Putting that aside, the record shows, the public record, that he is a dangerous nominee. The record shows he spent his career running smear campaigns, including heading up a witch hunt against Planned Parenthood under a special House committee. At this moment, he's leading a highly partisan investigation into Act Blue to undermine Donald Trump's political opponents. The Inspector General's office at the Health and Human Services Department is the largest such office in the government, and for a solid reason. There's a lot of work to be done, for example, to go after the fraudsters who are stealing taxpayer dollars or hurting families. Mr. Bell in the past has used his position, this is the record, the public record, to target opponents of the Republican Party instead of using the power he had to root out legitimate health care fraud and abuse. Americans ought to be able to know that their independent watchdogs are going to call balls and strikes without political interference. If confirmed, it's my view that Mr. Bell will challenge that faith to the core. Next is Mr. Arjun Modi, nominated to be Deputy Commissioner of the Social Security Administration. His appearance is timely, considering that his new boss, Mr. Bisignano, has been deputized to be the acting director of IRS after months of actual chaos at that tax filing agency. As tax filing seasons kick into high gear, that means Mr. Bisignano is going to be a busy man, which means that Mr. Modi will in effect be the de facto head of Social Security. So I'm concerned about the state of affairs there because Mr. Modi does not have any direct experience working on Social Security policy. And as far as I can tell, he has not managed more than a couple of dozen people. Social Security continues to face a customer service crisis, and Americans deserve to have Social Security led by somebody who knows how to right the ship. In yesterday's Washington Post, one of my constituents from Lake Oswego, Oregon, shared how after waiting on hold for more than 2 hours to speak with someone from Social Security, he received the cruelly named polite disconnect in which he was hung up on because the office was no longer open. He was recently diagnosed with throat cancer and just wanted information about survivor benefits for his family. It took 3 more attempts of hour-long wait times for him to get in touch with somebody at Social Security. So put me down as skeptical that Mr. Modi has the experience to lead this agency in Mr. Bisignano's absence and to address this customer service crisis. Let me conclude by discussing the 2 trade nominees. Important positions, Julie Callahan to be Chief Agricultural Negotiator at the Office of USTR, and Mr. Getman to be Deputy in that office. Donald Trump's trade agenda has been nothing short of a disaster for the country. Farmers and small businesses are struggling to stay afloat as he flip-flops on his tariffs. Prices on everything families buy, from groceries to cars to electronics, just keep going up and up. Workers are wondering if they're going to have a job 1 month to the next. What's needed now more than ever is a consistent, understandable trade agenda that's going to put American workers, businesses, and farmers first. Instead, what we have is a trade agenda that seems driven by Donald Trump's personal grievances. I'll be waiting to hear from these nominees exactly how they plan to restore stability to the economy and bring down costs for business. My final point is this. This is not business as usual. Senate Republicans are making a mockery out of this process by advancing nominees like Mr. Bell and voting to confirm him over 100 unqualified individuals in one fell swoop. The government is shut down. Donald Trump is using it as another opportunity to stomp all over the U.S. Constitution and use taxpayer dollars as a personal piggy bank. I cannot support more nominees that have been hand-picked to help Donald Trump do just that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator White. And before we turn to our witnesses, I do need to respond. I'm sorry to the witnesses and to others here that this hearing has become a forum for the battle we are having over the government shutdown right now. As of Tuesday night, we've voted 13 times to open the government. And it's not the Republicans who are refusing to open the government. It's the Democrats, and they're refusing because we will not agree to their demand that in health care policy, we agree to their $1 trillion-plus spending package that will simply throw more money at the issue rather than actually negotiating over real solutions that are needed to fix the coming crisis that we see. Yes, premiums are going to go up dramatically. No. The reason that they're going up is not because of the temporary COVID premium support that is about only 4% of the coming increase in premiums that is going to happen. We stand ready, and the Democrats know that we stand ready to negotiate on meaningful health care reform. My colleague referenced PBM legislation. This is legislation that he and I co-sponsored last Congress when he was chairman. It's legislation that I want to move. But we cannot move it as long as we are in this government shutdown stalemate and there are no negotiations allowed. We stand ready to negotiate when the government is opened. And I wish we didn't have to have these kinds of debates in front of these kinds of hearings, but that's apparently where we are today. Now, with that, in a moment, our nominees will share their opening statements. Before doing so, I have 4 obligatory questions that we ask all nominees before the Senate Finance Committee. First, is there anything that you are aware of in your background? And I ask you to give me a yes or no answer to this. Just go down the line. Is there anything in your background that you are aware of that might present a conflict of interest with the duties of the office to which you've been nominated? Mr. Modi, you could go first.
Senator, no.
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 Second, do you know of any reason, personal or otherwise, that would in any way prevent you from fully and honorably discharging the responsibilities of the office to which you have been nominated?
No.
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 Third, do you agree without reservation to respond to any reasonable summons to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of Congress if you are confirmed?
Yes.
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 And finally, do you commit to providing a prompt response in writing to any questions addressed to you by any senator of this committee?
Yes.
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 All right, thank you. I will now turn it over to our colleague, Senator Barrasso, to introduce Arjun Modi, and I will then provide a brief introduction of our other nominees before proceeding to your statements. Senator Barrasso.
Well, thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. Before introducing my friend Arjun Modi, I do have to comment that having heard just the chairman and the ranking member talking about Obamacare and the issues there, I would just turn to the headline in the New York Times, the Democrat-run New York Times on Sunday, and was Obamacare is pricey. Question is, who's paying? And the taxpayers have been paying by propping up Obamacare for years. It's never brought down prices. It's failed completely. And to hear a story that somebody's premiums are going up 500%, like these Biden bonus payments that are expiring because the Democrats chose the date for the expiration, that's about 4% of what is described now as 500. So the 496% that I heard the ranking member talk about is a direct result of the failure of the Obama health care law that has been voted on by not a single Republican. So that's what we're dealing with, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your comments as well. But I'm here today to introduce and thank my friend for taking on the responsibility. It's a privilege today for me to introduce an extraordinary leader and a trusted friend, Arjun Modi, and he is joined with his wife, Ami, who is here. She's an ER physician, so she knows a lot about health care. His daughter, Isha, and his daughter, Isla. Thank you for being here today. I'm glad that you're here to support your dad. Arjun's been nominated to serve as the Deputy Commissioner of the Social Security Administration. I think in choosing Arjun, President Trump has chosen the very best. I've known Arjun for 15 years. He's a leader who has shaped my work here in the Senate. He's run 3 of my Senate leadership offices, and in each one, he didn't just manage them, he transformed how we serve the members of this body. Done a magnificent job. Prior to that, he honed his skills working for Senator Elizabeth Dole of North Carolina and Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson of Texas. When you hire staff, you need people you can trust absolutely, and I trust Arjun absolutely. And he has earned the trust in moments both big and small. Here's the truth about Arjun. When something that needs to get done, he gets it done, and he does it with excellence. He doesn't just know policy and process. He knows people. He understands people. He listens to people. He doesn't just build high-impact teams. He builds loyalty among the teams. Doesn't just work hard. He works well with everyone. And when the stakes are the highest, he delivers the results. I've watched Arjun take on the toughest challenges and find solutions that other people have missed. He's come away and, my God, this was actually going to work, and it works. And that's exactly what Social Security needs right now. We heard the story about someone calling and waiting on hold and not having their phone answered and then going to disconnect. Arjun knows how to solve problems. For 90 years, Americans have relied on Social Security, not just for income, but for the independence that they've earned. They count on the Social Security check. They count on that to keep the roof over their heads, to put food on the table. And it's a promise that the American people deserve to be kept, and it's a promise that matters, and it needs leaders who understand the importance and the challenges of this. So Arjun's going to modernize the Social Security Administration. He's going to strengthen the core mission. He's going to ensure that payments are timely, are accurate, and secure. And at the same time, he's going to work with this committee and across the government. He's going to collaborate with people. He's going to communicate to people. And most importantly, he will never forget that behind every case number is actually a person. Every beneficiary matters, whether they're a senior, a survivor, or someone with disabilities. Social Security works because Americans can trust it month after month, year after year. And with Arjun, that trust is in capable hands. I've trusted Arjun to lead my staff. The President has trusted him to strengthen Social Security, and now I urge my colleagues on this committee, on both sides of the aisle, to trust him with their support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Barrasso, and I'll now give a brief introduction of our other three witnesses. Mr. Getman previously served as Chief of Staff to Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin from 2021 to 2024. Prior to this role, he was a counselor in the Office of Domestic Finance at the Treasury Department from 2019 to 2020. Mr. Getman also served as the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Export-Import Bank. And before serving in government, Mr. Getman was a private equity investor for over 20 years. Dr. Callahan currently serves as the Assistant USTR for Agriculture Affairs and Commodity Policy. She previously served as a Deputy Assistant USTR and Senior Director in the USTR Agriculture Office. Dr. Callahan has also held senior leadership positions in the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and in the U.S. Department of Agriculture Foreign Agriculture Service. Finally, Mr. Bell serves as General Counsel at the House Committee on Administration. He has previously held roles in the Virginia state government and was Chief of Staff for the HHS Office of Civil Rights from 2017 through 2021 during the first Trump administration. Mr. Bell has also held several other roles in the House of Representatives and was a senior counsel at the Department of Justice. I want to thank again each of our nominees for being here today. And Mr. Moody, you may proceed with your opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, and members of the committee, it is my honor to be the President's nominee to serve as Deputy Commissioner of Social Security. President Trump has been strong and straightforward about Social Security. Preserve and protect the promise for every eligible American. If confirmed, I will carry that charge. I will take the President's clear commitment to Social Security and go to work for every American. From the moment a child receives a Social Security card to the moment a family receives a death benefit, Americans will have an agency that works for them. The Social Security number is one of the most widely used forms of identification in our country. And Social Security benefits are the foundation of many Americans' retirement planning. In all, Social Security tangibly serves every American. SSA must deliver premier service and maintain pristine controls. I've been fortunate to learn from the giants of the Senate, Senators Dole, Hutchinson, and Barrasso. Whip Barrasso, I am humbled by your introduction. Importantly, I'm supported by my faith and family. Isla, Isha, and Ami are here with me today. Allow me to briefly share why public service is important to me. My father immigrated to the United States during the Nixon administration. He arrived at JFK Airport with $8 in his pocket. He worked days at chemical sites, rode the subway to Brooklyn in the evenings to earn a master's degree, and slept at night in the hallway of a group apartment. For the last 25 years of his career, he proudly served our nation's veterans at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in East Orange, New Jersey. From him, I learned that public service is a noble calling, and in his retirement, as he received his government pension and his Social Security check, he would often say to me, "God bless America." That is why I see the work of the Social Security Administration as two inseparable imperatives: service and control. On service, deliver the best possible experience for every American, whether at a field office, over the phone with a representative, or online through my SSA. We must equip our workforce with the leadership, the systems, and processes to excel in every channel of service. On control, be timely and accurate in payments, drive down error rates, constantly monitor outlays, understand the actuarial analysis, get our backlogs cleared, and update our rules. We must safeguard SSA's data systems, protect personal information, and ensure the public's trust. This is an immense operational and financial challenge: a 50,000-person workforce, over 1,200 field offices, and a $1.5 trillion annual spend, the largest in our government. It demands experienced leadership, operational excellence, and pragmatic problem solving. If confirmed, I will take on this challenge in partnership with Commissioner Bisignano. Together, we will make Social Security great, and it will be historic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Modi. Mr. Gutman.
Members of the committee, I'm honored to appear before you today as President Trump's nominee for Deputy United States Trade Representative for Africa, Europe, the Middle East, Western Hemisphere, environment, labor, and industrial competitiveness. I'm grateful to President Trump for the opportunity to serve the American people. I've also appreciated the many meetings with members and staff of this committee in recent months. I look forward to working with you if I am confirmed. I would like to express thanks to my parents, sisters, and family. I am forever grateful for the love and support of my wife, Ann, and our sons, Fritz and Jay, who are here today, and our daughter, Grace, her husband, Luke, and our perfect granddaughter, River, who will soon have a sibling, very, very soon. I should also mention the inspiration, mentorship, and friendship of Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, who trusted me to serve as his chief of staff, and Ambassador Bob Lighthizer, who supported my appointment as the chief operating officer and EVP of the Export-Import Bank during President Trump's first term. Finally, I would like to thank Ambassador Jamieson Greer for his steady leadership in forging the America First trade policy, his unparalleled knowledge of international trade, and his unwavering commitment to take actions for our country. His talents in trade are mirrored by others at USTR, and I am excited, if confirmed, to continue my work with this incredible team. Now, I'd like to share a few of my experiences that have impacted my perspective on trade policy. I grew up attending public schools in Springfield, Ohio, one of 34 Springfields in the United States. It was a thriving community supported by thousands of manufacturing jobs at long-standing and iconic American companies. During that time, Springfield supported 8 elementary, 5 middle, and 2 high schools, as well as 2 hospitals and 3 municipal golf courses, where I competed and developed into a collegiate golfer. It was a great place to grow up. Turn the clock forward. Springfield has lost over 90% of those manufacturing jobs. And the impact? The city contracted from 82,000 to 58,000 residents as both direct and indirect manufacturing jobs left the area. The city closed 3 elementary, 2 middle, and 1 high school, and consolidated the 2 hospitals into a single location. There are no municipally funded golf courses today. The hollowing out of this once vibrant manufacturing community is emblematic of hundreds of towns across America that have suffered from the deindustrialization that began with NAFTA and was accelerated by China's entry into the WTO. If confirmed, I will work with you to support the reindustrialization and the revitalization of the many Springfields across our country. My background also includes many firsthand experiences working with U.S. manufacturing companies who face the very problems this administration is seeking to address. Burdensome regulations, economic incentives to offshore, and asymmetric access of foreign manufactured goods into the United States. And at the Export-Import Bank, I had a front row seat witnessing the erosion of America's global share in important infrastructure projects due to the aggressive industrial policies and fierce competition of other nations. I watched as China executed its Belt and Road initiatives to expand and strengthen its commercial and political influence in Africa and strategic regions around the globe, while also flooding global markets with subsidized industrial overcapacity. These actions have eliminated competition, manufacturing capacity, and crucial supply chains in the United States and other Western nations. I'm grateful for President Trump's leadership and courage in addressing and reversing the trade policies that facilitated America's industrial decline, and his determination in restoring economic and national security for the United States. If confirmed, I pledge to assist American companies competing globally by opening markets, eliminating unfair foreign trading practices, and leveling the competitive playing field. I will also work to advance critical manufacturing sectors and supply chains in the United States to increase job opportunities with good wages for the many Springfields across America. Thank you for holding this hearing and considering my nomination. I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you very much. Dr. Callahan.
Chairman Crapo, Ranking Member Wyden, and distinguished members of the Senate Finance Committee.
Could you pull the microphone a little bit closer? Thank you.
Great. It's a great honor to appear before you today. I'm grateful and honored to have been recommended by Ambassador Greer and nominated by President Trump to serve as the United States Trade Representative's Chief Agricultural Negotiator. I'd also like to thank my husband, Scott, and our kids, Vanessa, Maria, and Nathaniel, and my extended family, who are a constant source of inspiration, strength, and support, and I would not be here where I am today without them. I was able to hone my diplomacy and negotiating skills at an early age as the youngest of 5 girls growing up in a house with 1 full bathroom. I also learned the importance of hard work, discipline, and self-sufficiency from my paternal grandmother, who was widowed at an early age and worked full-time raising her children at a time when single parenthood was not common, and my maternal grandfather, who was one of 10 and supported his mother and siblings to become a plumber's apprentice in his early teens when kids today would be just starting high school. I'd also like to thank the incredible mentors and role models that I've had over my nearly 20 years as a civil servant. To the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the organization that brought me to DC on a science diplomacy fellowship, my first entry into the executive branch, as well as to the members and staff that I've met with over the past several weeks in preparation for this hearing, and that I've met with over several years in my role as the Assistant USTR for Agriculture. If confirmed, I look forward to working with you on the critical trade issues facing farmers and ranchers across our great country. The experiences that have shaped my career and the agricultural trade negotiations that I've participated in over 2 decades have deeply affected my worldview. When I look at a map of the world, I see tariff and non-tariff barriers, as well as opportunities. American agriculture is second to none in terms of quality, safety, and efficiency, from advanced genetics and livestock production practices, the commitment to sustainable practices that allow for increased yields and fewer inputs, biotechnologies that allow for no-till practices, and innovative products to meet consumer demand. But that said, American agriculture is under great stress. Farmers and ranchers rely on export markets to break even and often find themselves on the receiving end of retaliation and unfair trade practices that threaten their very existence. Frankly, many trading partners don't treat the United States as well as we treat them. And moreover, many treat our competitors better than they treat us. I can't tell you the number of times that trading partners have told me that agriculture is too sensitive to include in negotiations. For example, they say, "We can't open our market to U.S. dairy because it's so sensitive." Meanwhile, they're importing billions of dollars of EU dairy products. That is just not right. The America's First trade policy of President Trump offers a path to reset our trade relationships in a holistic manner and reestablish a level playing field for American farmers. I understand that despite the president's success in lowering inflation, unleashing American energy, and unlocking new market access, farmers continue to struggle. China is using agriculture as a weapon, and American farmers and ranchers are feeling the pain. If confirmed, I will work with the committee, others in Congress, those in the administration, and all interested parties to move quickly to implement the America's First trade policy that promotes fair and reciprocal trade, that the benefits accrue to all sizes and sectors of the agricultural economy. If confirmed, I will work tirelessly to break down barriers and open market access for your constituents and American farmers, ranchers, fishers, and food manufacturers across the United States. Thank you for your consideration, and I'll be happy to answer your questions this morning.
Thank you. Mr. Bell.
If you ask for about coffee, you'll be the most popular person in America.
What?
To appear before you as President Trump's nominee for Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services. I thank the President and the Secretary for their support. Also, great thanks to my wife, Marian Bell, a model of patience, kindness, and good advice, who is here today. I firmly believe that with each passing day, the President and the Secretary's leadership has placed America on a path to generational change in health, the health of our fellow citizens, and in the healthcare system itself. It's great to be back in the Senate. Just 40-plus short years ago, in 1982, I began my career in Washington, D.C. as a counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee, assigned to the Subcommittee on Security and Terrorism, then chaired by then-Senator Jeremiah Denton, a former Vietnam naval aviator and prisoner of war. The 1980s marked the emergence of public choice theory, the idea that over time, government agencies choose their own well-being and the well-being of government-adjacent non-governmental organizations over the core mission Congress has assigned to them. Many people believe, as I do, that this is the current central problem in the federal bureaucracy. This theory has taken deep roots in health and human services today, producing waste, fraud, and abuse. During the first Trump administration, as Chief of Staff of the Office for Civil Rights, here's what I saw. I learned from the Chief Information Officer that HHS had over 20 procurement centers and that different parts of HHS were paying different prices for the same computers from the same vendors. I learned that HHS had 522 separate line item programs that each had 8 to 10 sub-programs. Within that list were 24 virtually identical job training programs. I learned from one program manager that her greatest challenge was getting her $1 billion training budget out the door so Congress would not cut her off. She said, "We're in every Ritz-Carlton in the country every August to beat the deadline of the end of the fiscal year." I learned from a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention annual report that disparities in healthcare outcomes such as higher diabetes, higher breast cancer rates were due to diagnosis occurring sometimes decades too late. CDC made practical, common sense suggestions to address this challenge. When I asked the authors of the report during a meeting whether CDC's practical recommendations were being implemented, their countenance dropped and they said, "Not really." Every time we met with doctors, we heard the same complaint. I spend about a fourth of my time filling out paperwork to comply with federal regulations. Doctors often say that the joy of the work they do is sullied by the drudgery of the compliance paperwork. If confirmed as Inspector General, I'll examine, evaluate, audit, and investigate agencies within HHS to support the initiatives of President Trump and Secretary Kennedy. The traditional tools of the Inspector General are well known. Remain independent, promote transparency, be tough and fair, make sure recommendations are clear, produce timely materials without compromising quality, and make them accessible. But the current challenges will require more than this list. The Office of Inspector General must help explain exactly what's going on and must provide actionable information in support of the President and the Secretary's courageous and innovative change of direction for the improved health of all Americans. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell, and I'll start my questions with you. And in fact, your oral testimony just now responded quite significantly to this, but you do have extensive experience at the Department of Justice and in the House of Representatives and at the HHS. Could you just quickly highlight your experiences in background of oversight, auditing, and investigations, and explain how that prepares you for this role?
Thank you very much, Senator, for that question. First of all, while at Department of Justice, I often worked on complex organized crime cases, including financial fraud and money laundering cases that involved working with forensic accountants. It was those accountants, along with IRS agents, that would make the case for very large, complex, multi-state prosecutions and litigation. I also worked in the House exercising oversight over the fetal tissue industry, an industry that this the Congress has banned in a federal statute. I conducted dozens of depositions, collected tens of thousands of pages of documents, and then formed a 500-page report with over 2,000 exhibits.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Callahan, I appreciated your testimony. You very clearly pointed out the burdens that American agriculture faces from tariff and non-tariff barriers globally. And I'm very glad to see that you're in this position and understand that so clearly. I appreciate that President Trump is now trying to get those trade barriers down. And I look forward to you getting the opportunity to work with him to do that. Idaho farmers and ranchers produce more than 150 different commodities, and I'm proud of every single one, whether it's our dairy, our potatoes, our lamb, beef, or sugar beets, or the list goes on. But I'd be up here all day if I listed all of the unfair trade barriers that they face. Do you commit to continuing to make yourself accessible to me and my staff to discuss these barriers in greater detail as President Trump moves forward with his efforts?
Thank you, Chairman Crapo. Absolutely. And we are really in an unprecedented time in terms of our negotiations to ensure that farmers and ranchers able to get the market access and can compete on a level playing field all over the world, and really look forward to working with you, with our cleared advisors, with stakeholders to make sure U.S. farmers and ranchers get those benefits. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Modi, what do you see as the top challenges facing the Social Security Administration right now? What would be your focus for what needs to be accomplished?
Thank you, Senator. We have a leadership team that's been there for about 6 or 7 months that is prioritizing customer service and pristine quality control. So one, jump into that and make sure that we have the processing and systems in place for our employees to be successful in working with the American public. 2 is to recruit and retain the best and most qualified people to help run the organization. And 3 is to get our public affairs in order, essentially promote the mission critical items of the agency within the workforce, so we're all driving towards the same goal, and then also help with the triaging of incoming the agency's dealing with. The agencies operate at the bottom quartile of employee satisfaction. We want to bring that up to the top quartile. It's been beaten down by a former commissioner. It's been beaten down by the press. We want, this is going to be a premier organization. That's the effort that we're going to undertake.
Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Getman, Idaho's home to more than 200,000 small businesses. which make up 99.2% of the Idaho business community. Business certainty is key to their ability to compete domestically and abroad, and I appreciated your testimony and your experience with regard to the importance of small businesses. This is an easy question, but would you please just share with us your commitment to providing business certainty to U.S. companies and your views on how trade policy can accomplish that?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. American trade policy is working to do two big factors for Americans, and increasing good jobs with good wages and protecting unfair competition from overseas, where the over-industrialization, over-capacity of other foreign nations has dramatically impacted supply chains around the United States and devastated small businesses, not only from my region in Ohio, but across the country. And so our commitment, my commitment here, is to ensure the resiliency of manufacturing supply chains throughout the United States, where those are many small businesses, and to make sure that the opportunity is there for expansion and revitalization of those communities going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. That focus is very critical. Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one point before we go to questions. I know that the committee Republicans don't like it when I criticize them about their record on health care. But if you have not had a single hearing, not one, on health care in 400 days, that lousy Republican record on health care is not surprising. It is inevitable, and that's why it's an important issue. Now, Mr. Bell, let me start with you on an easy issue. 4 days into his term, the president sent HHSIG and 16 other inspector generals a 2-sentence email telling them they were fired. Their firings were an unprecedented assault on the independence of inspectors general and a clear signal that if they call out wrongdoing by this administration, they're going to be shown the door. Now, my view is these firings clearly violated the law. The Senate passed a bill 93-1 calling the Securing Inspector General Independence Act as the title. That law requires that before the president fires an inspector general, they've got to give Congress 30 days notice and explain to the Congress in writing exactly why that's being done. Pretty straightforward. So if you have what it takes to call out wrongdoing, that looks to me like a pretty good example. So my question is, if President Trump removes an inspector general without following the law, without providing Congress 30 days notice, and without explaining in writing why he's doing it, is he violating the law? And this should be, in my view, a yes or no question.
Thank you for the question, Senator Wyden. Senator, I wasn't part of those discussions, part of the legal analysis that the president may have sought, and I believe those matters have been already litigated and are over.
It's not over, it's still the law. I mean, this is not a close call. I mean, you can't order a Sprite around here by a 93-1 margin. That's what this law passed as. It is still a law. So what gives here? I mean, if it's a law, you got to comply.
Senator, I will uphold the law as if confirmed as Inspector General, the law, the regs, the guidance. I'm committed to the rule of law. I thank you for the question. But again, I was not part of that decision made by the president. I support the president and believes he's a man of great integrity.
This is not about those matters. This is about the text of black letter law, which passed the Congress 93-1. And you're talking about all kinds of other things, which is certainly your right to do so, but let the record show that somebody who's talking about supporting the law is not willing to apply it as it relates to his field. One last point that I want to get into Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bell has had experience doing investigations. Act Blue is what he's up to now. Then he previously was dealing with Planned Parenthood. And I'm a privacy hawk, Mr. Bell, and I was struck by you and your staff in the Planned Parenthood investigation demanding names, private communications of doctors, researchers, medical students, and even patients, stripping them of their privacy, exposing them to heightened threats and harassment, and endangering their lives. The investigation was predicated on doctored videos provided to you by a personal contact. The release of these videos resulted in a 9-fold increase in threats to healthcare providers and providers alike. And I believe, based on the public record, the documents that we have reviewed, your actions on the Planned Parenthood investigation were reckless, and you repeatedly pushed for access and made public-private medical information, ignoring the warning of nonpartisan experts. And privacy should be not a blue and red issue. It ought to be fundamental. The Founding Fathers thought it was fundamental. And yet my reading of what went on in the Planned Parenthood investigation, you trampled on people's privacy. I intend to oppose the nomination. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wyden. Senator Grassley.
Yeah. I associate myself with the remarks that Senator Crapo made about the farming situation for you two people in the middle. Thank you for taking that strong. Thank you for taking that strong stand in your opening comments. So I want to make a short statement in regard to the same subject. I've been speaking a lot recently about the income crisis in farming, particularly in crops. Farmers are facing low commodity prices and high input costs. The second highest input cost for farmers is fertilizer. So directing this not in the form of a question but a statement to Dr. Callahan and Mr. Getman. I know that the responsibility for this rests with the Commerce Department, not at the Trade Representative's office. However, I hope you would take back to your team the message to get rid of the Biden phosphate duties that removed Moroccan phosphate as an option for American farmers. That represents roughly 70% of the global reserve of phosphates, almost making it non-accessible to American farmers. So to you, Dr. Callahan, this question, based on the fact that President Trump is meeting with President Xi in China, or it's actually in Seoul as we know. We're all hoping for good news from their meeting, especially on soybean exports, and I guess there's some news on that today. There are many non-tariff barriers for U.S. farmers hoping to get their products sold to China, including beef producers. So what are some of these non-tariff barriers, and how will you continue to push China to comply with rule-based trade and even their own regulations allowing to allow more products into China?
Thank you for raising these important issues, Senator Grassley. In terms of the struggle faced by American farmers and ranchers on high input costs and low commodity prices, certainly understand the stress and will work with the interagency on, of course, trade policy from the USTR side and working with colleagues across the U.S. government on domestic policy issues that can help U.S. farmers and ranchers. On China specifically, China has done some unprecedented damage this year, in particular, this growing season, where they were not procuring U.S. agricultural goods, as we all know. There is some sign of hope in advance of the president's meeting with President Xi. That said, we're very pleased to see that there are some soybean purchases happening. That is long overdue. There are a number of other sectors that also we need to see China lift its unjustified trade barriers. That's sorghum, beef, a number of commodities, cotton, across the board. If I start naming them all, I'll get stakeholders upset with me if I don't name them. But China across the board has been weaponizing agriculture, and I am looking forward, if confirmed, to engaging with China to ensure that we can have a transactional relationship. We don't want to over-rely on China as an export market, but we also don't want that market to be zero. So look forward to working with you and others to address these issues.
And for you and Mr. Getman, as we look to reviewing the USMCA, now that Mexico's GMO corn issue is resolved, the number one issue that I hear from Iowa farmers on the USMCA is getting U.S. dairy into Canada. So for you two, is the USMCA dairy issue an enforcement issue, or are there some changes that we should push for in the review to get more dairy into Canada?
Thank you for that question, Senator Grassley. As you know, USMCA is part of my portfolio going forward, and out of respect for the Senate's responsibilities to advise and consent, I have been unable to directly engage on issues related to USMCA at this time, but I look forward to working with your team and ensuring that we get the appropriate outcomes for Iowa farmers when we review the USMCA 2.0.
Can you comment on that, Dr. Callahan?
Certainly. Thank you, Senator Grassley. The USMCA review is an excellent opportunity to take into consideration the feedback that we receive from stakeholders and address areas that there's clearly room for improvement. One of those areas is to ensure that U.S. dairy producers get the benefits that USTR originally negotiated in the USMCA. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Daines.
Chairman Crapo, thank you. Dr. Callahan, thank you for your years of service at USTR and your willingness to serve in this position. You will hit the ground running, which we need at this moment here on behalf of our producers across America. I do greatly appreciate the work you've done alongside Ambassador Greer, as well as President Trump, to put American agriculture at the forefront of these ongoing and encouraging trade negotiations that we're hearing about as we speak here over in Asia. Dr. Callahan, you were the Senior Director of Agricultural Affairs at USTR when we finally lifted the ban on beef with the China market and opened that China export market up to American producers in 2017. I remember well when I went over to China, brought along some wonderful steaks from one of my producers from the Miles City, Montana area, and gave them to the premier and told him this is the best beef in the world. In fact, I told him that Australian beef, which was in the market there, had a distinct kangaroo flavor. And he'll really enjoy when he finally gets to taste Montana beef and U.S. beef. By opening up that market, the second largest beef import market in the world, ranchers were able to export cuts that were not as valuable in the United States, but do that at a premium. And after years of negative margins, of drought, of challenges during COVID, Montana cattlemen have just started to finally turn a profit, finally be able to make their payments to the banks for the loans they have for some of the land that they own. This is a win for producers. It's also a win for consumers. Profitability helps ensure that we have a secure and durable food supply and will help grow our herd size that will bring down consumer costs over time. Enhanced export markets and not market-distorting imports from Argentina are a large part of that equation. Unfortunately, China has put in place serious trade barriers, and beef exports to China have plummeted since March. Foreign competitors, sadly, are filling that void in our absence, and they're undercutting our American ranchers. Dr. Callahan, are we making any progress in reopening the China market, the second largest beef export market in the world, or finding additional markets for U.S. beef?
Thank you, Senator Daines, for raising this very important issue and understand the imperative to continue to open and expand markets for U.S. beef. If confirmed, I am committed to reopening China's market to U.S. beef. China's behavior can be explained only with one word, and that's retaliation. And we have a lot of work to do at USTR to reverse the trend that has been in place for several years, as you're exactly right that in the early days, once the Phase 1 agreement was signed, I and the interagency worked diligently to ensure that China met its commitments, both the regulatory commitments and also pushing for those purchase commitments that were in the Phase 1 agreement. And I will say, during the first Trump administration, USTR provided a report to the president on a weekly basis of China's purchases under the Phase 1 agreement. Unfortunately, over the last several years, China has slid back and is not purchasing U.S. agricultural goods as they should. But if confirmed, I am committed to reversing that trend and rebuilding access to the Chinese market.
Dr. Callahan, thank you. And I remember distinctly, then Senator David Perdue and I went to Beijing and we're helping President Trump and the administration finalize that Phase 1 trade deal. And I'm very happy to see now Senator Perdue as Ambassador Perdue on the ground there in Beijing. He understands the markets here and, of course, is a huge advocate for the president and his policies. I want to just close with Japan and South Korea. They are some of our staunchest allies in East Asia. They're also major purchasers of Montana wheat. Our wheat farmers are struggling. They tell me time and time again they need more access to the export markets. 95% of the world's consumers live outside the United States. The future of American agriculture is access to these markets. Dr. Callahan, has the U.S. wheat benefited in the recent framework agreement with Japan, and can we expect more positive results with South Korea?
Thank you, Senator Daines. In terms of our agreements on reciprocal trade negotiations, we're really pushing for 3 areas of progress. One is lowering tariffs on U.S. agricultural goods. The second is eliminating unjustified non-tariff barriers. Those are really the core areas of negotiation. And the third is seeking purchase commitments from countries that choose to do so. And U.S. wheat is one of the commodities that a number of countries are committing. They're signing MOUs with the private sector, making plans to import more U.S. wheat to benefit U.S. wheat growers. In terms of Japan and Korea in particular, we will be pressing them to ensure that there are no non-tariff barriers that are unjustifiably holding back purchases of U.S. wheat, and to promote further market access for those 2 countries as well. Thank you.
Dr. Callahan, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Bennett.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for holding this hearing. And Dr. Callahan, congratulations on your nomination. I know you've spent your career working to open foreign markets to U.S. farmers and ranchers, and that is really important work. I'm a little worried that your colleagues in the current administration are more focused on propping up the Argentinian peso. In fact, it seems to be doing several favors for President Milei of Argentina, rewarding him with unconditional financial support and expanding U.S. market access. We're doing this even while China makes enormous purchases of Argentine soybeans at the expense of U.S. soybean farmers. China's U.S. soybean embargo is the result of President Trump's the China policies that he put in the last administration, which, by the way, I didn't object to notionally, but incoherence of the policy, I think, has put us in the position to see these responses from China. I'm worried that even though he may ink a deal with China tomorrow, that sees Beijing buying more U.S. soybeans, which would be good for us and good for our soybean farmers. I'm worried that the price for that is going to be that we're going to be sending U.S. technology to China that we shouldn't be sending to China, because we put ourselves in a weak position to negotiate this agreement instead of a strong one. I'm very concerned that he's going to claim to have solved the China soybean problem, which he created at the expense of our national security. And if that weren't enough, instead of selling into foreign markets, the U.S. taxpayer is now long the peso. I can't believe that that is the position of my colleagues on the Finance Committee, Republicans and Democrats. It is an incredibly interesting trade for a hedge fund manager like Scott Besson to make, but I doubt Coloradans think this is a sound investment to make with their tax dollars. It's staggering. I would challenge any of us to find a single parent in our state who believe that we should be putting $2 billion of their money in to speculate on the Argentine peso. And now we've extended President Milei a $20 billion currency swap with no conditions and no protections for our taxpayer dollars. When we offered a similar swap to Mexico in 1995, we added strict requirements to ensure that the American people's money wasn't spent recklessly or wasn't lost in an unhedged trade. Yet the Trump administration has announced no such protections in this case. We barely have any explanation from the Treasury Department at all. To my knowledge, this committee has not received any explanation. And after risking billions of taxpayer dollars propping up a country that has a history of default, we've turned around and caused chaos in the markets for farmers and ranchers by announcing more Argentine beef imports. The administration says this will lower beef prices for consumers, but Argentina accounts for just about 2% of our imported beef. I know you know that, Dr. Callahan. Even if that amount were quadrupled, it would be nowhere near enough to change grocery store prices in Colorado or anywhere else. What it did change was confidence. That is what President Trump undermined, was confidence. The president told cattle ranchers that beef prices were too high, and the market took that as a signal that more shocks were coming. And prices have dropped, speculation has spiked, and now producers are the ones paying the price for those tweets. Dr. Callahan, what's the value in doing any of this if we're not going to reduce beef prices in America? You're an expert. Please let us know.
Thank you, Senator Bennett, for raising this issue. And I will say that the negotiations with Argentina are underway. And if confirmed, my intention is to signal to U.S. farmers and ranchers that my single-minded effort across our negotiations is to open market access to benefit U.S. farmers and ranchers. With Argentina, they do impose non-tariff barriers that prevent U.S. beef from entering their market. They also have tariffs. My intention in the negotiation with Argentina is this will not be a one-way conversation about beef. We would like to see beef access into Argentina as well. Thank you.
I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman, but let me just say I appreciate the coherence of your answer. And I hope that it reflects a coming coherence in this administration's trade policy, because our producers have not deserved to be put in the crosshairs of this incoherent policy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Bennett. Senator Lankford.
Chairman, thank you. Thank you to all of you for walking through this process and all the work that you've already done. I do want to follow up on what my colleague
I'm not leaving then.
Michael Bennett just said. I would tell you the Oklahoma cattle ranchers are very eager to be able to see more market access. Well, soybeans, wheat, pork, chicken, they're eager for this. There's been great frustration in trying to be able to open up markets. This committee talked often with the USTR's office under President Biden, who did not aggressively pursue new trade deals. And this committee, on a bipartisan basis, poked the USTR to say, go get new markets, go negotiate new stuff. So there is an expectation to be able to go get new markets on this. American beef is the best in the world by far, not even close. And more countries want more and more access to that, and they're blocking us out because they know we have better beef than theirs. We want market access on that to be able to push for that. So there is a high expectation to do that. I know you've already committed to that, and I appreciate my colleague raising this. This is a big issue for us in Oklahoma as well, and thanks for all the work that you're already doing on this to be able to open up new markets for American ag products, beef and everything else included in that as well. So, Mr. Bell, I want to be able to raise a couple of things on this. The Office of Inspector General for HHS under the last administration started some work on Medicare Advantage programs and trying to do greater oversight there. There is a problem with upcoding. There is a problem with improper payments, with denial of payments. I have hospitals in Oklahoma that have stopped taking Medicare Advantage because there's so many problems in it. That is an unfinished project that's out there. Will you commit to continuing on the oversight of Medicare Advantage to make sure we finish that out?
Thank you for that question, Senator. Yes, I believe from even the public literature and some academic literature that remains a chief problem with the Advantage program. I have a long history of finding out how crimes are committed, how they're concealed, and how to institute initiatives not just to improve statistics or improve fines, but actually to solve a crime problem. We have a crime problem with Medicare Advantage.
We do. We do. I picked up something the last administration was doing and want to finish it out. Let me highlight some things they were not doing that we're going to need the Office of Inspector General to be able to take on. One of those was nursing homes. We asked over and over again for greater oversight because the nursing home surveys that keep coming to different nursing homes have redundant questions. They're filling out lots of paperwork. That's just been an ongoing problem. They have plenty to do already on it. They don't need one more form from us that's a redundant form for something else coming in or one more survey coming back to them. Will you commit to helping HHS look at this issue so that we can reduce the amount of paperwork that nursing homes can do so they can spend more time with their patients and less time filling out federal forms?
Senator, if confirmed, I'll pledge to sit down with you and talk with you and work out the details of how we might improve nursing home care and solve problems, not just take bureaucratic steps.
Thank you. In 1997, Congress passed almost unanimously a law dealing with assisted suicide, saying that federal funds cannot flow to states that they actually use that money for assisted suicide. Now, several states have assisted suicide laws, which I adamantly disagree with. There's not been oversight. This is another area the previous administration would not do oversight over federal funds that are flowing to states and how it's being used. In the past several years, we have data, for instance, that we have 60 individuals that chose to do assisted suicide in their state because they had an eating disorder. 20 of those were under 30. I find that appalling. What we don't know is are federal funds being used to promote, provide, go anything through that because the previous administration wouldn't even look at it. Would you commit to actually doing oversight on what Congress has passed into law?
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, Senator, the job of the Inspector General is to be a student of congressionally passed laws, including restrictions on federal funding.
Right.
So yes, that is exactly the kind of initiative I would undertake if confirmed as Inspector General.
I do appreciate that as well. We're counting on that. On one more area where the previous administration wouldn't touch, and it was oversight over abortion facilities and abortion clinics. and whether they should be disbarred, whether they're actually following medical procedures correctly, all the different issues. They just looked away and said they're just not going to do oversight. I know this is an area you've worked on a lot in the past, to do real oversight, to be able to look at what's happening in these entities and that are providing abortions. They require oversight like everyone else, and I know politically for the previous administration, they just didn't want to look at it. But this is real lives that count in this, and care for women. Will you commit to looking at it and following the facts wherever they go, no matter what the political repercussions are?
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for the form of the question. That's exactly the kind of thing that an inspector general must have the courage to do: follow the law and follow the facts, even if it's unpopular.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Mr. Modi, when Commissioner Bessignano was here, I asked him about what I call doggy, the muskrat crowd infiltration at Social Security Administration, and whether he would take a look at whether they had either damaged databases or exfiltrated data improperly or left back doors for private access to to Social Security data. And what he said was, there will be a total review. Yes. Will you commit to making sure that that total review gets accomplished?
Senator, thank you for the question. Absolutely, we'll continue to monitor PII at Social Security.
That's a different thing than completing a total review. What I'd like to hear you say is the total review that he promised will be completed honestly and accurately. Can you say yes to that?
A total review of what, Senator?
A total review of the integrity of Social Security databases, whether they've been...
Yeah, absolutely. We will continue to monitor the integrity of Social Security databases on a daily basis.
All right. That also did not answer the question. Let me be more specific. The chief data officer of Social Security, who has since left, said that a huge data set named Numident was copied onto an unsecured cloud server, and that this is a very high-risk proposition. The Social Security Administration has denied that, so now we have two competing versions of what happened. Will you see to it that the Numident question is answered as part of that total review?
The Numident database must be secure, and absolutely we will continue to monitor the security of the Numident database.
Ditto something called the Federal Parent Locator Service. Will you see to it that whether or not the Federal Parent Locator Service still is secure and secure from hacking and infiltration and so forth?
Yes,
that will be reviewed as part of that so-called total review?
Yes, Senator.
You will. Great. Okay. You didn't quite answer the questions, but you're close enough for now, I guess. But we'll continue to pursue this because I think it's vitally important, particularly after people out of the tech sector and the info sector and data system sector have been messing around in these databases to make sure that they actually are secure and data isn't being exfiltrated to private actors, because these days data is gold. Mr. Getman, you had your undergraduate studies in economics. Is it true that it's a pretty basic economic proposition that negative externalities from a product should be baked into the price of that product?
Thank you for that question, Senator Whitehouse. I enjoyed our robust conversation about numerous issues regarding the reciprocal trade frameworks, and I think that as we talk about externalities, we're talking about our discussion regarding environmental arbitrage that goes on across the globe. And
do you agree that that's a basic economic proposition? Milton.
It's a cost that could be shifted from, yes, Senator, cost that could be shifted from one country or one company to another.
So let me be a little bit more specific about that. If a foreign country, for instance, or a company in a foreign country acquires competitive advantage against U.S. competition by virtue of its failure to meet health or environmental standards, is that an appropriate thing to look at for tariffing to correct the imbalance and put the U.S. company on a fair footing with the foreign competitor?
Senator, thank you for raising that issue again. As we discussed, we agreed that environmental enforcement, among other arbitrages that are occurring out in the global economy, was something that we should look at significantly and pursue and work with your team on. And specifically, what we've seen in Southeast Asia is waste product, plastic waste, being
That's
and ending
just
up
where I
in
was
the
going to go in my next question. You remember our conversation.
Absolutely,
Good.
Senator, and ending up in the
Because
middle
I think
of
that
the
you
Pacific.
have we all have enormous amounts of waste plastic floating into our oceans. That is a common burden for all of us. President Trump was very articulate about this in the ocean plastics bill signing that I attended. And one of the reasons for this is the failure of these competitor countries to have adequate waste management systems in place. Will the adequacy of our competitor countries' waste management be an issue that you will take a look at, and with particular reference to the plastic waste problem?
Thank you, Senator, for again raising this issue, and I agree that it is an issue that we should dive into more deeply, and I look forward to working with you and your team on that.
My time is up.
Thank you. Senator Barrasso.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Arjun, again, congratulations on your nomination. As you know, Social Security is critical to everyone in the country, and specifically Wyoming's aging population. As I travel the state, I hear from seniors who depend upon the program. They paid into it their entire working life, they've earned the benefits, and I believe they deserve timely, reliable service. Over the years, this committee has heard a lot of promises from previous administrations about technology modernization at Social Security, online portals, digital systems, that's all fine, but not every community is the same, and not everybody's ability to have computers or use computers is the same in an aging population. Too often, Washington has pushed a one-size-fits-all solution. It doesn't work for every beneficiary. So for many of our seniors in rural areas, a call-up, in-person visit, all of those things from a field office are going to make much more difference for people. The ranking member in his home state of Oregon had a client, a constituent yesterday who called and was on hold a long time. We've had issues like that as well. That's a big concern, because a lot of times past efforts have failed because people don't really see what is needed by folks at home that are the users. So if confirmed, how are you going to ensure that ongoing modernization efforts don't really leave the rural communities behind? And that's an issue from a bipartisan standpoint that we need to make sure rural areas are taken care of.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. A foundational pillar here is premier customer service, and in whatever channel the customer wants to be served, whether it's in person, whether it's on the phone, or whether it's online. For rural communities specifically, and those that may lack broadband access or the online channel may not be available, we want to equip our workforce with the best processes and systems in place. So when a beneficiary or a constituent walks into an office, they're serviced quickly, and they're serviced we're able to close out their case on the spot. So we will we've already made improvements. This is a holistic approach, right? When you take a certain set of people out of the phone systems and allow them to service themselves online, there's more room on the phones for people to get their calls answered timely. We were at a peak last year during the Biden administration of about an hour call wait on average to talk to somebody. We're down to about 7 minutes. Now that's a macro number. I'm going to dive into state level data as well, take inputs from congressional delegations from the people in the state and from our state level dashboards, and make sure that at the state level we're appropriately servicing every community.
Thank you. Dr. Callahan, I want to talk about beef imports from Argentina. In less than a year, President Trump has made tremendous progress in securing wins for American cattlemen. He's achieved unprecedented market access for our beef producers in regard to Australia, Malaysia, and the United Kingdom. He's now opening millions of new acres of federal lands for grazing, and I applaud all these efforts. In the last few weeks, we've heard from ranchers, as you can imagine, in Wyoming, but all across the country, who are concerned about a sudden increase in beef imports and an announcement related to Argentina. Wyoming ranchers produce the safest, the best quality beef in the world. Cattle is also Wyoming's #1 cash crop. So in my home state of Wyoming, cattle outnumber people by more than 2 to 1. Ranchers are the lifeblood of so many communities all across the West, across the country, and certainly here in my home state of Wyoming. What assurances can you provide us that Argentine beef imports won't undercut prices for American ranchers?
Thank you for raising this important issue, Senator Barrasso. I can affirm that our efforts in all of our negotiations for across the globe, the agreements on reciprocal trade are intended to reverse the U.S. agricultural trade deficit. You know, we went from a $6 billion agricultural trade surplus 4 years ago to a $34 billion agricultural trade deficit last year. For beef in particular, I and colleagues are negotiating for increased and expanded beef market access with our trading partners across the board. With Argentina, as I mentioned, this negotiation is ongoing. My intention and the intention of all of our ART negotiations is to ensure that our agricultural trade deficits turn into surpluses and that U.S. cattlemen have access to markets around the world. Thank you.
In terms of the time frame of these 80,000 tons, what's your time frame that you expect those to enter the U.S. and could that, what do you see that happening? And then I know I'm running low on time. I was going to ask you about the American sheep industry.
Thank you. Our negotiation with Argentina is ongoing, so unfortunately I don't have a very specific timeline for that.
And then with regard, how concerned are you about the long-term future for America's sheep industry, which is suffering a number of setbacks based on international imports into our nation?
The challenges faced by U.S. sheep producers is top of mind. In fact, this summer I visited with stakeholders in the state of Utah, heard their firsthand stories. We have farmers, second and third generation farmers, that are at risk of losing their ranches, and if confirmed, I am committed to ensuring that American lamb producers have a fair shake and compete for the domestic market. They're being outcompeted by imports. We want to see that reversed as well.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, as a doctor, I'm going to want to submit additional questions to those related to HHS, if that's fine with you, for the record.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, there's a lot going on today in Asia, and it appears, though, that there was no progress on getting new market access for tree fruit, apples, cherries, and no movement in getting U.S. fresh potatoes into Japan. I think President Trump finalized a framework deal, but I think some good news maybe on shipbuilding, but no word on market access for those products. So what can we do to eliminate these tariffs, and what do you know about this particular leaving out of this important product?
Thank you, Senator Cantwell. The issue of potato access into Japan is one that I'm very personally familiar with, and it's an issue that I am committed to resolving with Japan. Japan's unjustified non-tariff barriers that are preventing fresh potatoes to enter their market need to be removed.
And I'm also talking about apples and cherries, so.
Apples likewise. The specialty producers, I have very close connections with specialty producers, cherries, apples, and others, and I'm committed to opening market access for those products as well.
When? Do you have a time frame, Dr. Callahan?
I will certainly be engaging with my Japanese counterparts to make sure they move forward with eliminating
Well, we know these are very popular
non-tariff barriers.
products with this country, for sure. And so this is about us, trade agreements or deals that basically aren't meeting agriculture need, particularly for the Pacific Northwest when it comes to potatoes. So clearly want to see that dealt with. Mr. Gottman, the shipping industry, very important to the Northwest. One estimate found that fees will come out to about $1.6 million per voyage for Chinese operators, like Costco, in response, China started charging U.S. shipping for docking at Chinese ports. I'm concerned that one unintended consequence of those fees is that this will exacerbate Northwest issues related to U.S. ports. Particularly, these vessels will instead call on ports in Vancouver or Prince Rupert. And what will you commit to doing at USTR that will to lessen these fees and protect U.S. ports?
Thank you for that question, Senator. We are looking to ensure that American jobs at American ports will continue to be robust and growing opportunities, and that we will not be losing market share in our northwestern ports to Canadian ports. As we work through this, there are several items that are important to consider with that in terms of the harbor maintenance tax, as well as the vessels taxes that you've mentioned. And our goal is to make sure that we play on a level playing field here in our northwestern ports compared to Canada.
Well, we need an aggressive approach here. So I look forward to hearing more details on how you plan to accomplish that. Mr. Bell, if I could, obviously we're having a big debate here about how to deliver affordable care and make sure that we keep a very low percentage of Americans who don't have insurance and therefore then have uncompensated care, which then ends up raising all our prices. Do you agree that we should, maybe you've had this question, I'm getting here a little late. Have you asked this question about extending the expiring premium tax credits? So do you agree that we should extend or some version of that to cover Americans and lower the cost of uncompensated care? And as an Inspector General, would you be responsible in seeking out waste? Do you believe that the budget reconciliation bill, which increases uncompensated care and the federal deficit, is a good example of that?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. Senator, I am before you to be Inspector General of HHS, and I know there's a lot of policy discussions going on extending credits for Obamacare. What I can promise you is that I will do examinations, evaluations, inspections, investigations, and audits to make sure that the programs that Congress passes are running as efficiently as possible without waste, fraud, and abuse.
How are you defining, well, my time has expired. I'll send you a question for the record, but I think this issue is that there are ways to lower the cost of health care, and we should all have a goal. I haven't heard that goal being committed to, but we should have a goal of having the lowest amount of uncompensated care in the United States. Because if you have that goal, then we're not going to be raising prices on everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the ranking member. To the panelists, congratulations on your nominations. Welcome to your family members. Dr. Callahan, I'd like to start questioning with you. As you likely know, the United States does not produce commercially significant amounts of coffee. In fact, 99% of all coffee in the United States is imported. And for that reason, prior to this current administration, Americans paid 0 tariffs on coffee imports. However, because of this administration, now we're seeing significant amounts of costs for coffee because of tariffs. Let me just say, and I think you know this, Brazil is one of the top sources for U.S. coffee. But now, because of the 50% tariffs that this administration has put on Brazil, we are seeing an increase in coffee. It's 40% higher than it was a year ago. U.S. retail coffee prices surged by over 20% in August alone. It's not a smart way to keep consumer prices down. So let me ask you this. What is the point of this tax?
Thank you for raising this issue, Senator Cortez Masto. And just to back up a bit, on September 5th, the executive order that was issued by the president lists a long list of products that are not produced in the United States, including coffee. Products like coffee, cocoa, spices. This list is incredibly valuable to the trading partners that we're negotiating with The list, we call it the PTAP list, but this list for some partners represents 80% or more of their agricultural exports to the United States. So for those trading partners that offer us an ambitious deal and we're able to close that deal, we will be ready and willing to remove the reciprocal tariff on coffee and other products. What
Well,
we have
let me
seen-
ask you this. I don't mean to cut you off. I only have so much time. This is my concern. How long does it take to negotiate a trade deal? USMCA took over 2 or 3 years. So we are talking about rising prices for consumers on products like coffee that typically did not have a tariff because we don't produce it here. I understand you want to use it as a negotiating leverage, but how many of these countries are you negotiating with right now, and what is the timeline? And can I say, shouldn't there be certain commodities like coffee, which we do not manufacture in abundance here, that the American public doesn't have to be part of leverage in the costs that they're paying at the expense of a decision made by this administration. And for that reason, I will tell you today, this morning, Senator Paul and I introduced legislation to impose no tax on coffee because we don't think consumers should have to pay the price. I'm hoping that's something that you would support. Last night, because Brazil is #1 exporter of coffee to the United States, there was bipartisan support to stop that tariff on Brazil. Last night, there was a vote for a Senate joint resolution. So I'm hoping there's common sense here because I don't know how long it's going to take for these negotiations to take place. And I will tell you, back home in Nevada, prices are increasing at the grocery store. They're not decreasing. So what can I tell Americans about the cost of coffee and how long it's going to take you to negotiate this?
Thank you, Senator. I can attest that at USTR, we have been working night and day to finalize these agreements. 2 agreements that were signed this weekend, the Malaysia agreement and the Cambodia agreement, really are emblematic of the high level of ambition that we're seeing from trading partners. The Malaysia agreement, I was in Malaysia 2 weeks ago. We worked around the clock to get that agreement over the finish line. These agreements are being finalized and signed on really an unprecedented timeline. You're absolutely right on the length of time for the USMCA versus the 2 agreements that were signed this weekend took a matter of months, and we have literally
So it is going
dozens
to take
of
time.
additional countries.
Let me just throw in here, add on to, for my cattle ranchers as well. I am hearing from them, and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association has said that President Trump's plan to increase beef imports from Argentina undercuts the future of family farmers and ranchers. It risks damaging the livelihoods of American cattlemen and women while doing little to impact the price that consumers are paying at the grocery store. One of my ranchers, cattle ranchers, said importing more beef from countries that don't match U.S. production standards like Argentina undermines both our producers and our progress. What can I tell them? That you're in ongoing negotiations? And what if you put them out of business? What do you put my coffee companies, the restaurants and the little coffee shops out of business? What do I tell them? That, oh, well, we weren't able to negotiate it quick enough, so sorry, you're out of business now, we're out of jobs, the economy is much worse in Nevada and across the country. We need timelines, we need answers. This isn't an answer for me, and I hope you understand the urgency of this, and I'm willing to work with you, but I need better answers.
Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So President Trump promised that he would lower costs for American families on day one. Those were his words, on day one. Instead, he is prioritizing a $40 billion bailout for Argentina and the wealthy hedge fund investors, starting with $20 billion in taxpayer money and $20 billion more fronted by U.S. banks, potentially guaranteed by taxpayers, and who knows, maybe even more money going to Argentina. Now, this bailout came after Argentina cut a deal with China that directly undercuts American soybean farmers. Under Trump, farm bankruptcies are surging, crop prices are falling, and Trump's chaotic tariffs are making fertilizer and farming equipment more expensive. But instead of helping American farmers who clearly need that help, he's helping the farmers in Argentina. So don't take my word for it. Listen to the farmers themselves. One soybean farmer said, quote, I turn on the news and we gave $20 billion of taxpayer money to Argentina, my competition. The American Soybean Association said plainly, quote, "The frustration is overwhelming." So, Dr. Callahan, you're being nominated to serve as America's chief agricultural negotiator. Do you agree that bailing out Argentina while our own farmers are struggling is a betrayal of the American soybean farmer?
Thank you, Senator Warren. In our negotiations for agreements on reciprocal trade, soy is a top commodity that we are negotiating around the world to ensure that countries around the world have access to high-quality U.S. soybeans.
So, I appreciate that. I don't mean to interrupt, but we're going to be limited on our time here. It's an easy question. I'm asking you if you agree with American soybean farmers themselves, whose interests you are supposed to represent in this job, and they are ringing the alarm about their own economic livelihoods. Surging farm bankruptcies, soybean farmers losing access to key markets when we prop up these competitors. So I just don't understand. If you can't acknowledge that there is a problem here, how do you represent American soybean farmers?
Thank you, Senator Warren. And in my role as the Assistant USTR for Agriculture, and if confirmed as the Chief Agricultural Negotiator, I will have the interests of U.S. farmers and ranchers.
Can you acknowledge that there is a serious problem right now for those soybean farmers?
Our current negotiations are making good on the promise to U.S. farmers and ranchers to reset our trade relationships.
So I'm sorry, you can't even acknowledge that our American soybean farmers are having trouble right now? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh,
you're just going to sit there and say, nope, we're working.
China's weaponization of agriculture has absolutely harmed U.S. soybean farmers, and
so farmers are in trouble because China quit buying from them. Because who is China buying from right now? What's that country?
China is purchasing from every country except the United States
right now? What's the name of that country?
China
Dr.
purchases
Callahan,
many
what is the name of the country China is buying soybeans from right now?
China is purchasing Latin American soybeans. As of this morning, they are purchasing U.S. soybeans as well.
They are buying soybeans from. If you can't answer that question, I don't see how you can represent American soybean farmers. Dr. Callahan, let me ask you about another constituency that you supposedly would be fighting for, and that's cattle ranchers. So Trump bails out Argentina. He undercuts American soybean farmers. What's next? He announces he's raising the quota for Argentine beef imports. Now, importing Argentine beef will devastate small ranchers, but with the big four meatpacking corporations controlling the market, consumers are not going to see prices that are any lower. So once again, Trump is helping Argentina while American ranchers and American consumers pay the price. One Illinois cattle producer called Trump's plan, quote, a betrayal of the American rancher, and said Trump is, quote, acting more like president of Argentina than president of the United States. So, Dr. Callahan, do you agree with the American cattle ranchers that importing beef from Argentina will harm them, particularly the small ranchers?
Thank you, Senator Warren. I am in close communication with U.S. cattlemen.
We're out of time. Can you just give me a yes or no on that? Do you understand that this will harm our small ranchers?
Thank you, Senator. I'm confident that the cattlemen understand that USTR,
yes
we are negotiating
we're
for their interests to open markets for U.S. beef.
Okay. Well, obviously, I can't get an answer to that.
Thank you very much. We have a vote underway, and I encourage all of my remaining colleagues to be really precise on your time so we can not get the vote called on us. Yep. And next is Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Bell, I want to come to you first. And I so appreciated the work that you did with me during my time at Energy and Commerce. committee and the work you did serving as our staff director and chief counsel on the Select Committee on Infant Lives. And what we discovered during that time, that CMS was not conducting a meaningful review of claims and audits of providers accounting to verify their Medicaid funds, and that some of those funds were being used for prohibitive activities like abortion. And the work that you led ultimately led to uncovering more than $2 billion that was funneled to abortion providers over a 2-year period. And then there was an additional $90.4 million out of the Paycheck Protection Program during COVID that went to those. So you've done outstanding work to protect the unborn. You have done outstanding work in your previous experiences in government service, and now you will have that $1.8 trillion budget at HHS in front of you. And I'd like to hear how you're going to drill down and help with finding some of these loopholes that are there in Medicaid, and how we can close this to make certain we're good stewards of the taxpayers' money.
Thank you, Senator, and for that question. You may remember that part of the key to the success of the report, 500-page report with 2,000 exhibits, was that we had a senior forensic accountant assigned to work with the panel. And my belief is that modern forensic accounting, along with some AI payment tools, can cut across databases at Health and Human Services, cut across the distribution of funds to recipients, both in block grants, population-based block grants, and other funds, to find the granular details of the fraud and the waste that's going on. The next step then is to sit down with the people who are actually doing that work. 80% of the IG staff does Medicare, Medicaid work, and find them the tools and the skills to solve what is a crime problem. There are crime problems in these grants. These are not just places that say we need a little more training, we need to improve our return on investment. We need to look at the crime problem that's occurring and solve that problem.
Well, thank you. You did great work for us at the Select Committee, and I know you're bringing that skill set to bear, and being able to close these loopholes, address that crime problem, as you say, is the responsible thing to do for the U.S. taxpayer, and I look forward to seeing you in that position. Dr. Callahan, I'd like to come to you. You've had a lot of conversation this morning with members, whether it's beef or soybeans, which are important to our Tennessee farmers. We are hearing about this every single day, and protecting our farmers from some of this aggressive Chinese barriers to entry is going to be vitally important. And I understand that is a top priority for you, and we thank you for that. I want to add one more Tennessee thing to you. We have a lot of small and mid-sized farmers in our state that are in tomatoes and fresh market production. And one of the things, people don't realize $50 million of tomatoes come out of Tennessee. We're third behind California and Florida when it comes to tomatoes. I love going to the Tomato Festival in Granger County every year. But the problem they've got is Mexican dumping. And I would like to know that you are going to address this for our farmers.
Thank you for raising this important issue, Senator Blackburn. The issues facing specialty crop producers are absolutely top of mind for me, and if confirmed, I am committed to ensure that fresh produce producers can continue to compete domestically for U.S. market access and also to open markets abroad as well. And so absolutely committed to working with you on these important issues.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Wyden. I appreciate this hearing, and congratulations to our nominees and to your families for your nominations. I will note that as we're talking about the high costs that so many of our constituents are facing, the healthcare.gov website just came out with the prices of the ACA marketplace premiums this morning, and they are, in my state, in many cases, more than doubling, and that is something I hope we can address as well as reopening the government. Before I turn to other issues, I just wanted to start with a simple question to the nominees. If directed by the president to take an action that would break the law, would you follow the law or follow the president's directive? Mr. Modi.
Senator, I don't believe the president would ask me to break the law.
Would you follow the law?
I will follow. I don't believe the president would ask me.
That is not an acceptable answer, of course, because he has repeatedly done things that courts have found to have been breaking the law already during this administration. Mr. Gutman.
Thank you, Senator. I do not believe that the president would ever ask me to break the law.
So will you follow the law or not if you were to?
And should I ever receive something from any official, I would consult with our Office of Government Ethics, and of course I would follow the law.
Dr. Callahan.
Thank you, Senator. If confirmed as the Chief Agricultural Negotiator, my efforts would focus single-mindedly
I don't have a lot of time. Do you believe in following the law or not?
I cannot envision any situation where that would come to pass.
So you can't answer whether you are law-abiding and whether you will honor the oath to the Constitution and the law. Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Senator. You and I discussed this in some detail in person, and I agree with my colleagues that President Trump would not ask me to break the law.
But yes or no?
I also commit to follow the law and the Constitution and to be a student of the laws Congress passes so that the IG oversight and implementation of those laws will be thorough and complete.
I appreciate that. Thank you. To Mr. Modi, in June, the Social Security Administration stopped publicly reporting call wait times, field office processing times, and other performance metrics. It's unclear why the administration would hide this information from the public unless it is trying to hide longer wait times for seniors who rely on their hard-earned Social Security benefits. If confirmed, will you commit, sir, to restoring SSA's performance dashboard and publicly releasing data on whether wait times are increasing for Social Security beneficiaries?
Senator, thank you for the question. The Social Security dashboard is probably the most transparent dashboard in our federal government. The items that are published there, my understanding, are more than was previously ever published. And through different administrations,
it has stopped publicly reporting call wait times, field office processing times, and other performance
Senator,
metrics.
I was on the dashboard yesterday. The call wait times are there. Senator, I was on the dashboard yesterday. The call wait times are there.
We will follow up with you because that is not our experience or our understanding or that of my constituents. Mr. Bell, the fentanyl crisis has devastated families across my state of New Hampshire. As we work to provide patients who have addiction with the life or death treatments that they need, some corporations are exploiting the fentanyl crisis to fraudulently obtain taxpayer dollars. The HHS Office of the Inspector General recently found that for-profit methadone clinics have billed the Medicare program for more than $300 million of addiction care services that patients never received. I've also launched my own investigation into whether for-profit methadone clinics are actually providing patients with the services that they claim they are. As Inspector General, will you continue to investigate whether opioid treatment programs are billing the federal government for millions of dollars in health care that they've never provided to patients?
Senator, I appreciate very much your care and concern about that program. I look forward to learning more about it, if confirmed, but I'm also certainly willing to sit down with you and work through the details of how we might improve those programs.
Thank you very much. I have one more question, but in the interest of time and knowing that there are votes, I will submit it to you, Mr. Gutman, in writing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Chair. On September 30th, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, Trade Preference Program, and the Haiti Economic Lift Program, Hope Haiti, expired. Both of these programs in September. Both AGOA and the Haiti Economic Lift Program lower the cost of goods in the United States, support economic growth at home and abroad, and strengthen America's ties with economic partners, which also bolsters our national security by preserving United States influence in areas where China is aggressively looking to expand its reach and is doing a great deal in that regard. This competition with China is serious. And for us to allow through neglect or for whatever reason, our participation with these trade programs with African nations is shows a lack of insight. It's short-sighted. China has become sub-Saharan Africa's largest bilateral trading partner, with trade reaching a record $282 billion in 2023. In fact, amid America's trade instability, these unpredictable tariffs, and just letting programs like AGOA lapse, China has eliminated tariffs on imports from 21 African countries to boost trade and amassed a $60 billion trade surplus with Africa just this year, tapping Africa's massive investment opportunity to take advantage of our tariff chaos. Mr. Getman, if confirmed, you will lead the office within USTR that oversaw the implementation of AGOA and the Haiti Economic Lift Program. Do you agree that it's important for Congress to maintain trade tools like these programs that combat China's influence while also promoting our values, human rights and economic growth at home and abroad?
Thank you for that question, Senator. First, I would like to say I've greatly enjoyed my conversations with your staff and the opportunity to meet with them at length and talk about this and other issues. As you mentioned, this is part of my portfolio going forward, and out of respect to the Senate, I have not directly engaged in these matters to date, but I would like to address your question based on my past experience.
Do you think it's important to maintain these programs? I'm asking you your opinion.
So in my personal opinion and based on your comments, I had the opportunity to run the Export-Import Bank as the chief operating officer, and what we saw was incredible influence and expansion of influence both commercially and politically throughout Africa. And I believe that the United States has a...
You mean from China?
From China, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's important, and I'm moving this along because I have limited time here. I think it's a major national security issue. Yes. It's important for our economy. That we are seeing it has an impact on the cost of goods here. And when you're in Africa, you can see it. Yep. You can see China is engaged in it. So it's in our interest to strengthen and extend these programs. I was glad to see that the Trump administration supports a short-term reauthorization. Yes. But the reality is businesses are not going to really invest until they get a longer-term commitment. You're running a business, you get a one-year reauthorization. That doesn't tell you much at all. So I support that to the degree that we're teeing up for a longer-term commitment. If confirmed, will you commit to working with me in this committee on a bipartisan basis to get these programs back online and help us explore reforms to strengthen them long-term for America's interests?
Thank you, Senator, for that comment. As I discussed with your staff, we are in support of an extension, and I look forward to utilizing our resources together.
That is an extension of AGOA and Hope Haiti?
Yes, Senator.
Yeah, I was especially proud to work with Senator Cassidy on reauthorizing Hope Haiti, and which, by the way, Secretary Rubio wrote. So I hope that we will take this seriously. Again, I know there are a lot of things going on, obviously, right now. But this extension sort of just happened in September, and we just move forward with business as usual. Meanwhile, China is eating our lunch. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I thank all the witnesses for being here. And just at the outset, I do disagree with the administration tariff policy, as many of us do, and I understand that it's not for you to decide what that policy is. It's for you to implement it. But I do want to ask some questions. Mr. Gutman, we've had a number. Basic question is this: if there is to be any tariff policy, is there an advantage that it be consistent?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I think that the policies, the tariff policies of the president have resulted in significant
Okay, I'm not
acceptance.
asking that. I get it. I mean, I get it that he believes in them, and I get it that all of you have a job to implement them. But I'm asking a really simple question. Small businesses are having their heads explode in Vermont because the tariff policy that they're subjected to, they don't like the tariffs. But what they can't deal with is that they change from day to day. I mean, the president saw an ad on TV he didn't like from Canada, and he increased the tariffs by 10%. So what my business folks are saying to me is, Peter, it's tough enough to deal with the tariff, but if we don't know what it is from day to day, that is going to make our very difficult job all the more much worse. And I'm asking, basically, do they have a common sense concern about having whatever it is, the tariff policy, it be consistent and reliable and something they can plan on?
Senator, I think that we have been engaging in reversing decades of, unfair trade
You know, this is very
policies.
frustrating. The frustration here, I'm not holding you responsible for what the tariff policy is. That's the president. He got elected, and he's entitled to pursue it. I believe it should be Congress's responsibility on it. But I'm just asking, you'll have a very major position, as you will, and you'll be giving advice to the president. And let me ask you this. Would you say, President, why don't we get a tariff policy and then have that be something folks can rely on and count on? Is that something you'd suggest to the president as a good idea?
Senator, again, as part of negotiations, things change, and it's important to maintain leverage to get the outcomes that we want that are supporting American jobs and small businesses in particular.
All right. I mean, you know, politicians we get accused rightly oftentimes of empty rhetoric. And I won't suggest that's what it is, but it's not an answer to the question. Let me ask you, Ms. Perkins, some questions. You have got an incredible resume, and or Ms. Callahan, incredible resume, and I was very impressed in our meeting in the office. So I clearly think you have the skills and experience to do a very good job. So I am going to ask you a couple of questions about what's happening to our farm economy. You know, these tariffs are, all of our farms, the dairy farms in Vermont to soybean farms in Iowa, they operate on a very thin margin. And we had a hearing with Senator Grassley yesterday. And of course, we had some Iowa soybean farmers who can't sell their product. And I mean, is there, in your view, a link between the tariffs that have been imposed and the complete loss of market opportunities in China for our Iowa soybean farmers?
Thank you, Senator Welch. And really, from my own perspective, negotiating the agreements on reciprocal trade, it's actually the opposite situation where previously the United States had an average agricultural tariff imposed on imports of 5%, while we were negotiating with countries that have 10, 15, 20, 30% average tariffs on U.S. agricultural goods going into those countries. So the reciprocal tariffs have really allowed the leverage that we can get both removal of non-tariff barriers that have prevented U.S. agricultural goods from accessing markets, and also bringing those incredibly high tariffs down so that the United States can compete on a level playing field.
Bottom line here, you did not address what I said, and you don't dispute as a fact, that our Iowa farmers have not sold a bushel of soybeans to China, and they're getting hammered. I'm just going to end with a quote that really reflects the dismay among our businesses. These are practical people. A lot of them voted for the president, but they got to run a business. Bill Wilson runs a Birds and Beans Coffee in Manchester. The whole tariff system is making managing our Vermont-based family business a nightmare for me and my daughter. The U.S. government is destroying our business. Simon Perkins, who recently ran Orvis, the reality is that a rapidly changing tariff environment is killing us. Peter Case Burroughs Sports. I mean, this is small businesses. These are folks that are in our communities, your community and mine. We love what we do and we're under attack. For 90 years, Burroughs Sports has proudly served Brattleboro, growing with our community through good times and hard. Today's economic pressures, rising cost and shrinking margins are testing small local businesses like never before. But now the very people who are in place to help are threatening the very way we conduct our business. They're getting hammered with steel tariffs. I guess I'm going to end by making a plea to you. You've got a job. You've been appointed by the president. You are going to be implementing his tariff policy. But there is dismay among everyday people running businesses about the ever-changing nature of these tariffs. It's really had a dramatic impact on our tourism business in Vermont. It's really hurting. So at the end of the day, my hope is that the reality of what is happening to our farmers, to our bike shop owners, our coffee bean sellers, gets delivered to the president so there can be some adjustment. And I do have one last question. I'm getting a little latitude here from the chair, but I do want to ask one on Social Security. You know, the death benefit when your spouse dies is $255. And today, that was in 1955. And today's money, that'd be over $3,000. We haven't adjusted since. And I've got a bill in so that we would bring up that benefit to reflect inflation. Is that something you would support?
Senator, I know this is something you're passionate about and a bill that you've been working on for some time.
I can't hear you.
I know this is an issue you've been working on for some time, and I'm sympathetic to it. It'd be inappropriate for me to comment not being there, whether I can support.
Well, you think 1955 funeral benefit works in 2025?
Costs have certainly gone up, Senator. I agree with you.
Well, I hope I can get your support on that. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Senator Marshall.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's start with Mr. Modi. Congratulations on everyone's nominations. Mr. Modi, we look forward to supporting you, a person well known to my office. Appreciate your past help. Talk just briefly, opportunities and challenges in Social Security as you see them.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. This is an immense organization that has kind of bifurcated silos. We want to make sure everyone's driving towards a mission-critical goals, which are premier customer service and pristine quality controls. We developed that holistic approach that Social Security will be a successful organization, and the workforce and, most importantly, the beneficiaries will benefit from that.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Dr. Callahan. Dr. Callahan, the USMCA trade agreement, I think, has been probably the most successful trade agreement of my lifetime. Mexico and Canada have replaced China in so many of our top trade partners. It's been very, very successful. But like every agreement, it can get better or it can get worse. This agreement's up here soon. What are the opportunities and the challenges briefly as you see them going into this new round of negotiations? How do we put wind beneath each other's sails here?
Thank you, Senator Marshall. And 100% agree to the value of the USMCA agreement. That said, the United States has a massive agricultural trade deficit with both Canada and Mexico, and there's certainly areas for improvement. We are reviewing the comments received through our Federal Register notice, and we'll be taking all of those comments into consideration when we think through how can we ensure that the benefits that were negotiated on paper are seen by U.S. farmers and ranchers, large and small, across the United States.
Yeah, and I just want to add to the topic that sorghum is a very important market that between not just China but Mexico as well, and hope that that's a priority. Let's move on to value add. Look, Kansas farmers make money is when we take soybeans and turn it into bacon, when we take corn and turn it into beef, when we take sorghum and turn it into biofuels. That's when we make money, right? The rest of the world has learned how to grow corn and soybeans, and so many people, the national media doesn't understand that we're going to see, we average 2 billion bushels of export of corn a year. This year, we're going to export 2.86. Soybean exports and wheat are both up 10% exports as well. The challenge is that, the president has agreements with 7 of the 10 major trade partners that we have. He's putting the I's and dotting the I's, crossing the T's. I hope on a couple of those this weekend as well coming forward. What are the opportunities in your eyes for ethanol? And, by the way, one reason that beef is valued so well right now is because of the Trump 45 agreements he did with Japan, South Korea, et cetera, that we're selling these value-added products to those countries. We don't make enough hamburger here to satisfy the satiety of Americans when it comes to hamburger here, but we're exporting our high-value beef. So talk a little bit about how you see this high-value end products for agriculture.
Thank you, Senator. We really have an unprecedented opportunity to use the leverage of the reciprocal tariffs to open markets around the world, including, most importantly, developing countries, emerging markets where there's increasing opportunities to increase our market share around the world. So there are a number of trading partners that are longstanding, very important, mature markets. We want to make sure we're maintaining those markets, decreasing non-tariff barriers where we can, but also, importantly, opening up new markets. And that's our efforts right now are focused on opening up those new markets.
Can you speak more specifically to these value-added products, though, as opposed to just selling more corn? What are the opportunities there, the value add?
Absolutely. And you're right that our capacity to crush soybeans domestically is growing. That means we need markets for soybean meal. And so we are looking at and receiving input from stakeholders on where are those shifts and what new tariff lines do we need to open. So you're absolutely right that it's not the traditional discrete commodities that we need to think about, but those value-added products, you're absolutely right. We need to open those markets as well.
Okay, Mr. Gottman, tell me the opportunities as you see them in the Western Hemisphere, Africa, in your markets as well.
Senator, as you know, because of my position, that being part of my future portfolio, and the advise and consent responsibilities of the Senate, I've not been able to be directly engaged in the USMCA discussions. That being said, we certainly have heard from many companies who manufacture in the United States that would like us to pay more attention in general to rules of origin and transformation and other challenges that we face for products coming in across the border from Mexico and Canada.
Great. I think I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
That would be correct. Thank you for paying attention, Senator Marshall. Senator Wyden has another few questions, and then that will be the end of the hearing. And Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be brief. I know you're juggling a lot this morning. Dr. Callahan, with respect to the morning, you've talked a lot about market access and opening export markets. That has been kind of your go-to. I think there's something else that's right at the heart of this that I just want to ask about, and that is farmers and ranchers are struggling because of higher input costs. That's what I heard in Eastern Oregon from the ranchers. They said, we're getting killed on higher input costs. And they say it's because of the Trump tariffs on everything from fertilizer to equipment. These deals involve tariffs of 10%, 15%, 19%. And my question to you is, and then I've got a couple of quick things that Chairman knows about and will be wrapped up. What are you doing about the tariffs that are jacking up input costs? And I'd like to hear what you are doing now, because I've heard a lot about things that might go on and the like. But the reality is we've had months and months of this, and we continue to get clobbered with these kind of costs. So what are you doing in terms of input costs and tariffs?
Thank you, Senator Wyden. My current efforts in the agreement on reciprocal trade negotiation absolutely is, I understand the urgency of getting these agreements over the finish line rapidly so that we can open opportunities for U.S. farmers and ranchers. On the specific import costs, we did discuss earlier rising costs of fertilizer. Certainly
so what are you doing about that, right? Let's just freeze frame that. I've heard mention of a variety of things, but I'm not clear on something that is being done today. So you mentioned fertilizer. What's being done today to reduce those fertilizer costs, because that is a big input?
Within USTR, the fertilizer lines are covered by our industrial goods office.
Now, what are you doing? You're here today. You were in my office. People in the Northwest know you. What are you doing today to lower input costs as it relates to fertilizer?
I have a very close relationship with the Assistant USTR for Industrial Goods, and we are both cognizant on the urgency to ensure that input costs are.
I'm going to hold the record open, but what you're saying is you have a friendship with somebody else. That's not being responsive to the question. A couple of other quick things, Mr. Chairman, just by way of matters that senators on our side are concerned about. It's been pointed out, for example, there was discussion with respect to Planned Parenthood and various issues related to their work. And I'd like to put something into the record that indicates that at least 13 states concluded that Planned Parenthood had not engaged in the alleged wrongdoing that was discussed, and 8 other states declined to investigate at all, citing a lack of evidence. If I could put that in the record.
Without objection.
Great. One last point, Mr. Modi, in response to Senator Hassan, there is a judgment on the part of our committee investigators that you were just completely incorrect. The Trump administration has removed dozens of customer service metrics that were published under Commissioner O'Malley. I would urge you, particularly since the record stays open, take another look at it, because our staff found something that was incorrect in your testimony. And put both of those matters into the record. Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Wyden. And again, I want to thank all of our nominees for appearing before us today. This hearing went on for 2.5 hours now, and you have weathered it. You are each clearly qualified to serve in the respective positions to which you've been nominated, and I look forward to voting in favor of your nominations. I urge all of my colleagues to do the same. And with that, I remind my colleagues that the deadline for submitting any questions for the record is 5 p.m. on Monday, November 3. And with that, the Finance Committee is adjourned. Thank you all again for attending today.